Hey guys, it's Ruben here with another video for 9 Parchments. I just recently beat hardcore difficulty twice and also got the platinum trophy, so I thought it would be cool to give some insight on tips and tricks that I use to get me through hardcore. Well, let's talk about what hardcore entails first. Hardcore is basically hard mode, but if you die, that's it, the game is over. You will have to start the game all over again. Your earned experience, character, and gear unlocks remain, but your progression through the levels will be erased. Sounds rough, no? Well, it is. On top of that, enemy spawns are randomized and elite monsters are more common. This difficulty is just plain brutal because some enemy encounters can feel unfair. The game basically takes into account what types of spells you have in your arsenal and creates enemy encounters purposefully to resist your spells. Not only that, but enemies will have multiple resistances and some temporary immunities. Sounds a bit ridiculous now? Well, it is. But no worries, I've got some useful tips and tricks that can help make this difficulty more manageable. Alright, tip number 1. Since the game has an unfair advantage of throwing all odds against you, well, you need to use everything you got against it. Use a character that is really high level. I recommend at least level 30 when starting the mode. Try to upgrade attributes that increase health, spell power, regeneration time, etc. I don't know, whatever your playstyle is, well, get your character buffed up before going into this mode. For me, I like glass cannons, as in I like risk-reward playstyles, so I chose to increase my spell power a lot. Next, I focused on spell regeneration and casting times, etc. I kinda avoided health as I really wanted those extra upgrade points to churn out more damage output for my character. But that doesn't have to be you. Follow your own playstyle, but have your character ready before going in. I chose Cornelius Cornflower because he had some good starting spells, and I was already high level with that character. But you don't have to do that. You can spend some time buffing your favorite character and then taking the character into hardcore. Now, I do have some recommendations for characters. I think that Carabelle is a solid character. If you can unlock her third variation, which is Carabelle of Eventide, she has a new skill tree that unlocks. The final skill in this tree is called Ice Barrier, meaning you will have an extra 100 points of barrier that constantly regens when you deal damage to enemies. It actually sounds pretty good in my opinion. Another character worth looking at is Gislan, or Gislan, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Her main skill tree has the final ability called Everbloom. If you're playing solo, then you basically get an extra life for each level. If you play in co-op, a random team member gets revived before you all go into the last chance mode. It's actually really good. The last character that is a good choice is Cornelius himself. His final abilities for the first 2 skill trees are all about maximizing damage output, if you want to go the glass cannon route. But his third skill tree, which is unlocked after unlocking his third variation, Cornelius the Forester, is especially noteworthy. The final ability in that tree is called Blue Blood. It can nullify fatal damage you receive once per battle, and you also recover 20% of your health. That's basically one freebie every battle. You can't get any better than that. I haven't had much time to experiment with other characters, but the 3 I listed right now are pretty solid choices whether you play solo or in co-op. Again, these are my choices and my best recommendations, but you should experiment yourself and see which characters work for you. Well, moving on. The second tip is about spells. Spells are everything in the game. The game progressively changes its conditions based on what spells you choose to take into your arsenal. So whatever you do, make sure to have a balanced arsenal. Sure, it may sound cool to have all the fire spells or ice spells, but then you may come against an enemy that has an immunity to your spells that you love collecting. What are you going to do then? Sometimes you have to forgo the cool looking spells in order to get a spell that might help you cover another type of weakness against enemies. I will mention which spells are really top tier to have in your arsenal. Since there will be a lot of enemies that appear in hardcore, you need to consider having some solid area effect spells, AoE spells. The best ones are Fire Totem, Frost Cloud, Lightning Wave, and Death Circle. Now, I know spells like Ice Bullets and Fire Bullets, etc., all the bullet type spells are good, but they can be a bit unpredictable as sometimes you can't see what's happening on the screen. The bullet type spells sometimes can hit you and instantly murder you. I've had experience with them. The other spells have a certain range you can control, but the bullet type spells can be random when used. Not only that, the other spells are just more powerful and more useful. Beam spells are always useful as they give out a constant level of damage output and are useful against bosses. My favorite spell has to be Lightning Bolt, which can chain through enemies while stunning them. Again, most of it can be personal preference as everyone plays differently. Make sure to have spells for all types of elements by the end of the game so you can target all types of weaknesses. I made a mistake of never having any healing spells, which became a nightmare for me as it was really hard for me to take down death type enemies. Either way, hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes and avoid that. Last thing I want to say about spells is to know how and when to use them. For example, if you see a bunch of enemies using shields guarding a bunch of healers, don't just toss a fireball or an ice beam attack, as the shield enemies will just repel the attacks at you. Instead, choose to circle around and use a fire blast, that sends waves of fires that can breach shields, or an AoE attack like Frost Cloud that can freeze all of them. Analyze the situation before spamming. Sometimes doing nothing can actually help you win a fight in the long run. Alright, the third tip is about your gear. Well, the only gear that gives you any tactical advantage are the staves. Throughout your gameplay, you will unlock numerous staves. Take time in reading their descriptions. Some can be very useful, and through some playtesting, you can find some interesting builds. For me personally, I recommend the Staff of Serenity or the Staff of Alcyon. These staffs have the effect where you heal by 50 points every time you blink. This was my go-to strategy. Get in the fight, do some real damage, toss in a couple AoE spells into the fray, and blink out of the area, which will also heal me a bit. Of course, that's my playstyle, so I implore you guys to spend some real time finding the best staff for you. Alright, the fourth tip is about whether to play the game solo or in co-op. I played the entire game solo the entire way until I got my platinum. Both times I played the game in hardcore difficulty, I played it in solo and found the game more manageable than playing with others. This is because you will have full control over the camera and things won't get real chaotic. Playing in co-op means that the camera may not always work in your favor. Also, the more co-op party members you play with, the more enemies will spawn throughout the game. The game will get real chaotic, and you may not always have control over a situation. The positive is that your teammates can heal and revive you if you get hurt or worse, die. My advice is that if you really want to play co-op, play with one other player. A two-player game is perfect as each player can back up the other and you guys can have good spell coverage. Any more and you are risking things getting out of control. Alright, the fifth tip is about movement. The game is atrocious when it comes to character movement. Your character moves at a snail's pace compared to the enemies in hardcore mode. So you need to be aware of when to use your blink ability. You have enough charge to blink twice and only twice before you have to regen enough mana to use it again. So be careful. Don't get trigger happy only to realize that you can't blink at the moment you need it most. Learn how enemies attack. Majority of the attacks can be jumped over, meaning if you see a shockwave, jump over it. If a beam attack comes at you, you can effectively jump to the other side of the beam. If you see a fireball coming at you, you can strafe left or right. You don't need to rely on blink all the time, just something to consider that can help you during a long battle. The last tip is something special and will help trivialize the ordeal of permadeath in hardcore mode. Sure, when you die, the game goes back to the main menu and you lose all level progress. But you can just back up your save on a USB or in online storage after completing each level. This way, if you die from an accident or die because you get overwhelmed, you don't have to go through the start of the game just to get to where you were. One other thing is that you can back up your save after checkpoints, making the later levels like stages 30 to 32 more manageable. You all know what I'm talking about. Stage 31, Thunder's Mountain, is just a nightmare. Some enemy encounters in that level is just pure hell. One last thing to mention is that if you die and the last chance mode activates, you're pretty much out of options, meaning the next death is a game over and you will have to reload a save from backup. But if you can get to the next checkpoint, you can actually get your extra life back. How? Well, just restart the whole game. When rebooting the game seems to give back your extra life, which is really useful. It's basically an exploit. Don't try quitting to the main menu of the game and resuming the game, as you will still only have the last chance left. To truly take advantage of this exploit, you need to exit the game and restart the whole game. Knowing this useful tip, hardcore should be more manageable as you can continue the game one checkpoint at a time. And that's pretty much it really. I mean, I could go in depth, but these are just some quick tips to help you out when starting hardcore mode. Hopefully this helps guys, and good luck. That's it for this one. If you guys liked or found this video helpful, drop a like to help me out. And please do rate and share this video whenever you get a chance, and is much appreciated. For all the newcomers to the channel, welcome. Enjoy your visit to the channel and consider subscribing to stay tuned to more guides and game content. Also helps the channel grow. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, take care.